You are listening to an entertainment program put together by a company called Financial Ineptitude. Anything said on this show is not an endorsement or professional advice. Would you really want to tell a court of law you were suing us because you thought taking financial advice from two idiots on a podcast put out by Financial Ineptitude was a good idea? Really? Clown hat smiley face.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to the China Shop. You've made it to another awesome episode. We got some exciting guests with us here today. I'm Shopkeeper Dan. With me is Kyle, creator of financialineptitude.com. How are you doing today, Kyle?
This might be too much information. I ate some salt and vinegar chips on Friday, and I still feel like my mouth is recovering.
Oh, wow.
Oh, gross.
Oh, I have brushed my teeth, if that's what you're at. That's what you're getting at.
I have a story about that. Yeah.
Who is that I hear in the background? We are joined today, once again, by Fleri and Leo from OrderFlow Labs. How are you guys doing? I definitely want to hear your salt and vinegar story.
Well, the other day, my wife went to Jimmy John's and got us like sandwiches and chips, and she ate, whatever she ate, and then she left to go do something, and her bag of chips was sitting on the counter, and I was like, I'll just have a snack, like, hey, there's some half-eaten bag of chips, that's a good snack or whatever.
Always love eating my wife's leftover food.
Exactly.
When she's not looking.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a dude and you can't relate to that, then I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
so I grabbed the bag and I'm just like mindlessly, eating a few, and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is this? So I washed my mouth out with Red Bull and cleaned it up. But yeah, I can't stand salt and vinegar chips.
How did you manage to get through more than one?
It took like, I don't know, I just grabbed a small handful, and it took 15 seconds of chewing before I realized what the hell happened. So I look at the label and I'm like, oh God, the fuck? Who eats this?
Leo's a slow learner, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh man, I knew a guy that used to make his own salt and vinegar Fritos. Those were just looked god awful.
Disgusting.
Take that, vinegar fans.
Hey, anyway, what have you guys been up to other than stealing your wife's chips?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Right?
What have I been up to? I'm trading, doing other cool shit with OrderFlow Labs, which I guess we'll get into that. And this weekend, I spent a boatload of time doing chores that my wife asked me to do.
Choring.
Because you ate her chips. She mentioned your chips around the house.
So, I don't know. It's been very productive.
What are you making of the markets today? I just talking with Fleri before you jumped in about, the volume just seems to be dropping every day on the SPY. It just makes it hard to believe in this latest bull rally.
Volume relative to the previous volume and the big, sell-off we've seen.
Yeah.
I think that's normal in some fashion once all of the volatility has washed out.
Oh.
Because, volume or volatility brings on more participants, right?
Right.
And so once the volatility kind of chills out, which is what we've seen, then the less participation you're going to get, on a larger scale, because not everyone is having to get in there. This is theory. I'm not a fucking institutional trader, but theoretically, the larger institutional guys don't need to get in there and defend or, whatever they're doing as much.
So kind of like they've already gone long and now they're just waiting to sell.
They're just, the positioning is in.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the volume is, intraday and just other normal, money, market maker shit that happens.
That's a much better theory than mine, which was that they're all drunk on a beach in Florida or New Orleans.
I mean, I like that too.
Hey, both theories can be true.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do institutional traders go on spring break? Larry said he was on vacation, so maybe.
I mean, I
like
was
when
still
the
cell phone
markets,
trading. Don't tell my wife.
Oh.
To sneak it in. We caught one trade that paid for the vacation, so I showed her. And caught a runner that paid for the vacation. So then it was somewhat forgiven. But yeah, there was some like sneaking down to the garage at the VRBO to make
Oh my
get the
god!
daily trades in.
Do it on your phone. I tried to trade on my phone. I always fuck up my orders.
Oh man!
In fact, that's actually become a cardinal rule in my office. No trading on your cell phone.
In the summer times on the boat, it comes in handy. It comes in handy.
Yeah. I've been noticing that you guys have been playing poker lately. I was kind of curious who the champion of this group is.
Oh man!
I mean, statistically speaking, it's me.
I saw you won the first one. I wasn't sure who won the next couple.
Leo's on a rebid. Yeah, I had a one big blind comeback in our tournament the other week, and then came in flying on our cash game last weekend, and then I ran pocket aces into Leo's 2-pair king queen on the turn, and that was the end of that run. A couple buy-ins later, apparently I bought Leo's wife's sandwich. And salt and vinegar chips.
I thought about jumping in and joining your guys' group, but I think that poker probably has one of the best as far as like cross skills to go with trading. That it just scares me. I don't want to sit in a room full of sharks.
Played a few tourneys in my day.
Well, I mean, you got bankroll management, you got probabilities and statistics, knowing when to cut losers and when to push and add to your, when you got good hands. Like, it just seems like a lot of those skills are kind of similar.
Yeah, find an edge, exploit.
I agree.
Which I think is Leo's expertise. Yeah.
It sounds like Leo's edge is start a Discord, invite them to play poker with you.
play hyper aggressive.
Do you play hyper aggressive? That's my style too.
I pick my spots.
Yeah, but when I'm playing, I like especially get heads up. Like I just start trying to push around. If I have a chip lead, I'm just going to lean on it. How's the liquidity zones challenge been going, Fleri? I've been watching some of the YouTube streams that you've been doing.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been really good. The challenge. I think. Let's see. I got 3 in today, and I think we had 8 left. So we'll probably live stream when this airs. It'll be tomorrow, but. Or it'll already be done, but we've got about 5 trades left. So the goal was to get to 100 trades and just to, kind of do something that was one part small account challenge and just one part like understanding how you can take a simple bracket, an area of interest, which obviously the liquidity zones just sort of print with the studies and their areas of interest, and then, sort of throw the discretionary piece out the window and then just see if using a proper risk reward strategy in an area that has a win rate that aligns with that risk reward strategy can just sort of print, slowly. Mm-hmm. The bracket is underperforming. It's a 2-lot MNQ is what we're doing with the take profit one at 30 points and the stops at 15. So then a trail kicks in at 50. And so essentially, if I were to be all in, all out, every trade is a 2-to-1 is kind of the idea.
Right.
And over the 90-ish trades, somewhere about just over halfway, started underperforming to the all-in, all-out strategy. So do a review at the end of it, but definitely the bracket as designed underperformed from a expectancy perspective. But overall, it's been good as far as like, did we make points or not? So that part's been good, but it's just kind of been a cool learning. And I was mentioning this the other day when we were streaming, like it's been really good practice for me to just learn to sit patiently when you get your entry. Obviously this is, if I'm flat, I just jump in the trade kind of thing, or if I'm logged into the account, to our OFL account to do the challenge.
Right.
But for my own personal trading too, just like learning to sit patiently and know that I have a target, whether it's just a straight risk reward based target, like I want to see this expectancy if I'm going to put on this amount of risk. But even hey, I want to target overnight high here, and not robbing myself of like there's a little pullback just before overnight high, and then you get out and maybe you give you're out 5 points before overnight high, pulls back, and then it ends up hitting. So it's been really good from a patient's perspective, even for me and my personal trading. So it's been fun to do.
That's interesting. That's one of the main problems I think that I have is not being able to run well, or at least I get way too aggressive with my stops when I'm trying to trail them.
Yeah, and that's it's so funny. I mentioned this a few times. Like I probably sweat those challenge trades so much harder than like trading my personal account.
Well, yeah, it's out in the open; everyone can see it, right?
Well, I mean that's a whole dynamic too. So I mean, to the people that do execute trades live, it's just such a different mental game.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of messes with you in a way that's completely different than already trading is difficult. But even with the bracket, like one of the rules is I just don't move it. And there's been some funny conversations. Right. Even Leo the other day when we were doing it was like, oh, I can't believe that. Like I would be taking right here because I've had some that have come like within 2 or 3 ticks of like the take profit one,
right,
and gone all the way back against me and been a full stop because one of the rules is just once you're in, you basically once a zone is created, I click in at the front of the zone and then I just let the bracket play out. Like there's no manual discretion in it whatsoever. So it either wins or doesn't. And I mean, for everyone that's come a tick away from hitting a take profit, I've also had the saves, right? Like the absolute stick saves where like I've even had one along the way that went to the stop loss and then I just was in the back of the queue and didn't get filled, and it went all the way to be like a 70+ point trade total. So it's kind of funny to like sit and actually watch some of those things play out, like literally on hands. It really helps with the patience and just like letting a trade thesis play out, right? Like you've developed a trade thesis, you've come up with a bracket. In this case, I think I would redesign the bracket, and I'll put a summary out to our Twitter that kind of analyzes how the stats went and stuff like that. But and then you just kind of let it play out. So it's been good to kind of see that and to see both sides of things that one you would do to change that bracket or how you could optimize it, or two just to kind of like learn and practice that patience of here's a trade thesis, here's a bracket, or like a risk reward strategy that I've deployed based upon this trade thesis, and letting it just kind of do its thing. And then just all the notes that you could create around like how would I filter this if I were going to be entering these with some discretion, because obviously you're not going to take every single zone and things like that. That's just kind of like part of the challenge piece. But even some of the notes that I've picked up on that.
Sorry, that's the part I'm most curious about is which ones would you have? Because there's been a few times where I'm watching, I'm like, oh man, if you could only just cut it right here coming up on the zone that like this is going to be a spot that you're going to trim.
Right.
And you have to sit through it like, I feel antsy for you on those ones.
I feel like it's so when the zones are created at the like high of the day or the low of the day, those are definitely ones that I think are lower probability for sure, just because of the obviously if the low gets taken out and your stop is just past the low, which typically if there's a zone created there, it will be just above the high or just above the low.
Right.
Those are tough spots too, because likely what'll happen if that zone or that area does sort of hold, but it doesn't hold the bracket, is it'll pop up, it'll stop run, and there's my mechanical stop, right, that I'm not going to move, and then it'll stop me out and then go the direction.
And then take off.
Right. And so if I was discretionary trading, like that would be one of those zones, especially at the highs or lows, where I would sort of wait for a move similar to that and potentially enter based upon like other tools or order flow. If there was a stop run, then hop back in. Or even like if you get stopped out and you see what you want to see from a reversal perspective, just to hop right back in. So that's for sure one, the highs and lows ones. And then the other like huge nuance that I picked up on pretty early on was you really want to see an impulsive move into these zones versus sort of like a lingering like series of like higher highs, lower lows, or higher lows into your zone that are less than your take profit one. So in the challenge, I'm using a 30-point take profit one. And if that impulsive move is less than 30 points into that zone, the probability shrinks dramatically.
Really?
And so seeing sort of that, like I call it an outside leg, but what you really want to see is sort of like a series of, say, like sell rotations down, and then an outside leg impulse move into a sell zone. And then you've got multiple things kind of going in your favor. You've got a larger leg or like a larger than a 1 standard deviation type move into your zone. Plus, if that if that reaction does happen the way we expect it to from one of those sell liquidity zones, the pullback to sort of like cover that leg, even if the buyers are going to sort of rebid it, is significantly lower and in theory, hopefully outside of our take profit one. So that was another big nuance to pick up on of seeing that move into the zone be larger than what my take profit one was, dramatically increased the win rate of those.
That's really interesting. I'm looking forward to reading that summary. And you're also just using the liquidity zone study on this, right? You don't have any of your other indicators up that are helping.
Right. Yeah. It's as soon as a zone prints, if I'm flat coming into that zone, then I'll just put an order with that bracket attached to it at the front of the zone. So again, like that's another thing too, entering at the front of the zone at some of these lower probability or potential filter ones where you would just sort of wait to see sort of like tools confirm. Because at least for me and the style that I trade, again, it would be like an area of interest. And then I want to see the tools confirm from an order flow perspective of like, are we seeing this move potentially roll over or, kind of curl up, and, is price action confirming? And then finally, like, the extremely low time frame, am I seeing some of those cues that would have me enter? And so, yeah, without the discussion piece, it's much easier to get in a trade, but you certainly probably lower the win rate pretty significantly. And I think there's some really simple things you could do to just increase that win rate, let alone we'll put something together on the bracket. But I think the bracket was probably a little too tight. And when we started, the volatility was a little bit more compressed than it is now. And in about the middle of it, it expanded pretty dramatically, which was good for a few runners. We caught a couple of 100+ point ones, but pretty tough now as like when the trail kicks in, the stop is just 10 points behind it. So you see it kind of hit and sort of take out the trail even is probably underperforming a little bit. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's, it's a small sample size, obviously only 100 trades, but it's just a good practice, right? To have a trade thesis, even one as simple as this, right? Like it's just a zone that's detected from our studies, and then develop a bracket that we think will be, positive expectancy, and then go, analyze how you did over a series of trades. And, in this case, it's going to end up being positive, points wise or dollars wise. But even if it wasn't, I think just like the exercise of going through that, trying to develop a setup that works is something that all traders should really be doing to develop an edge.
So this can either Fleri or Leo can answer this one, but using the liquidity zones, then which of the tools would you like to have on your chart book to be able to properly quantify the entries and exits and get the best use out of this new tool?
I'll go first. Yeah. So for sure, I want to see an exhaustive move into the zone. And so for me, it would be like probably a combination of the Better Delta and the EAD study, which is an exhaustion absorption detector. So the combination of those two, pushing into a zone, seeing sort of like positive delta, push into the zone, and then that reversal would be the main thing. Because again, you're like, for the majority of the trades that really work, that are just like pure reversal type trades where you're kind of fading a move, you really want to see that exhaustive push into an area. And for this area, which if you think about where these zones are created, they're created in an area where, there was aggressive buying into the highs that was either soaked by just a passive seller or just an aggressive pocket of sellers that came in and sort of just reversed the market in that area.
Right.
And so, whether they're trapped or not, if it's a liquidity zone, whatever you want to call it, either way, this is sort of like an area where we have action in a reversal that's already happened. And so we're kind of on the edge of where that reversal or that back test would come to. And that's kind of the interesting thing about these zones, is that you're typically, and probably why the ones that at the high and low of the day or the high and the low of the move can be lower probability, is that you're trading on that edge. And so if you don't see that exhaustive push kind of into the edge and then that rollover and the tools to kind of confirm that, it's got a high probability of getting traded through. And the interesting thing is that, you can kind of trade them both ways too, right? So if a zone that gets popped, it could be a big sign that like, okay, we've gotten through an area that was previous resistance, and now obviously resistance turns into support or vice versa.
I think, Dan, you were working on a bot before you took your step back.
Yeah.
What was the tool you were using?
Oh, so what I was doing is I was taking the dominator and the exhaustion absorption detector, and I was playing with entries, either agreeing with the detector, like, okay, if both these detectors agree, or if one of them like one at a time. I think the best one was just the dominance detector alone. But if the price was over the signal within a couple bars later of a signal, then I would go long. And then I tested it the other way, where it was like, if we had a dominant signal and it's now the next bar or two and we're below it, short it. And for the last set of contracts, it went pretty well, but I couldn't get that particular bot to work more than just the past year when I did anything further back, even trying to adjust my brackets for in quote unquote inflation for the changing.
I was going to say, that brings up a good question about the back testing. Like, what do you guys do back testing with the Sierra charts? Like, try to set up an automatic strategy and then let a bot go through and run through the previous year? If you do, then like what kind of time frames do you find most effective with that?
So the Sierra charts, certainly they have like their trade study based on alert condition, which can reference what they call SGs or subgraphs. And yes, those can be good. They're not 100% as far as like accuracy or like all the conditions and things that could potentially come up. I think you guys have probably run into some things like that.
I've noticed that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think obviously having somebody who can help write a script is definitely the more preferred way to go. We've run just, in our own personal like lab sessions, we've run things like dominator firing within proximity of the Joe pivot, or dominator firing within proximity of VWAP and things like that, to try to see what expected moves are around those areas. So we've done some back testing in that realm. Is the, specifically the Sierra charts study that they have available just to kind of identify an SG, the absolute best way to go. I think it can give you an idea if you're on the right track of a trade thesis, but I think ultimately you kind of got to get into that, like writing a script to be very specific type thing, and then to be able to kind of quickly look at multiple months or year of data. But that kind of like to the question around the liquidity zones or whatever, for me, I think like you mentioned, like if you see it get kind of pushed through, or like, let's say one of the execution tools, as we would call it, sort of fail, right? So at the end of the day, the study is showing you a condition that was met. Like if the shape or the whatever, so they were there. Just because the sellers were there and it didn't go doesn't mean that they weren't there. And so that information can be used in a bunch of different ways. To your point of like, I like the track that you were on of like, if I saw it go X number of points away, or say it like it went in your favor and then pulled back and put in a lower high, that kind of like confirmation risk style trade is one of my favorite things to do. Of like, I've got an area of interest, and usually mine are a little bit wider depending on the zone. But let's say it's like a 20 or 30 point zone where I'd like to potentially see a reversal, whether it's a buy or sell reversal. And then I see the tools start to confirm. I can kind of see the sellers coming in, and then you see the price action kind of putting in that lower high. That can be kind of like the A+ version of that, where you're seeing sort of the tools confirm an area that you want, versus just like, and listen, sometimes that can work, right? Like the buy tool fires and it just reverses instantly at the buy tool. That certainly happens. But for me, I like to see that combination of price action, the tools confirm, and my area of interest before really just kind of getting into an area. And I mean, you can scale into a zone as you're starting to see some of those things scale out and kind of recycle positions. There's a bunch of things you can do there, but just kind of like blindly following an execution tool is something I think we're pretty upfront about making sure that like that's not a strategy. Although you can probably go back on a chart and find times where it was like the low of the day or whatever. Great, but it's just not. It's not going to be a long-term thing that you want to be involved in. Of just like every time there's aggressive buying, just buying blindly.
Oh yeah.
We did. I think we did try that just to see how
as
it
the
worked,
baseline. But my whole logic was. Yeah. This is a tool that I know is measuring a real thing, and I was having good success trading the DOM. I caught some good runs when I saw a big push fail. So it was like, all right, this tool is doing what it's supposed to do. Then my trading style would be to script this, and I added other things to qualify a trade. So it wasn't just blindly like, oh no, price moved above this point, let's move. I found all of your tools to be wonderful things, and really did enjoy using them before I step back, for sure.
The only thing I feel bad for is the people who aren't on Sierra charts because they won't have a chance to be able to use any of these.
Well, that might be changing.
I think we got an update coming.
Oh, really?
Leo?
So a while back, like maybe 2 months after we launched on Sierra, we did a poll on Twitter and we asked people what they trade on.
Mm-hmm.
And NinjaTrader was number one out besides Sierra chart. And then MotiveWave was number two. Caveat to the number two thing. Thinkorswim was actually number one, but there's no chance we ever put anything on Thinkorswim.
Oh, really? Really? Aw.
Yeah. I don't think there's any chance we ever do anything like that, just based on what I know. But that being said, we are launching on NinjaTrader officially. Our go live date is April the 8th.
Oh, that's exciting.
So Friday,
April the 8th. And that'll be, yes, this should come out on, what did we say? The 6th. So, all right, perfect.
Yeah. So if you're listening,
That sounds like an exclusive.
yes.
Yeah, you heard it here first in the shop, folks.
Hopefully, no more podcasts for these guys for at least 2 weeks.
But I mean, we went through a pretty in-depth process too, because, NinjaTrader coding is done in C#, which is not a skill that our expert coder, Corey, has. And so we hired a coder developer that could write in C#.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously we went through that whole process of him getting everything up and running on Ninja, making sure everything worked within a reasonable expectation, right? Like all of these structural tools, the buy sell zones, the pivots, like all of that stuff lines up perfectly. There can be some deviations where an EAD might fire in Sierra, but it doesn't on Ninja, or vice versa. Same thing with the Dominator. Some of those, like in the moment, we call them execution tools. We may have one off here and there. So it's acceptable because there are different data feeds, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We're using the Denali feed on Sierra. Obviously with NinjaTrader, you're going to have, CQG, Rhythmic. They have Kinetic, which is their data feed we found the Kinetic data feed to be most in line with Denali, like pretty much 100% accurate. So within a reasonable expectation of being acceptable, all the pivots are good, the buy sell zones are good, like everything is pretty much on the spot. You just have those one or two exceptions, the EAD or the Dominator, which may just not show up in one or the other on occasion. But generally speaking, they're pretty much firing in the same spots.
So which one of you two had to do the testing?
All of us.
I was going to say we've all kind of been in the lab.
So you had to go learn NinjaTrader after you've been using Sierra for how many years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. So we learned NinjaTrader, then we got everything up and running. And the good thing is obviously we've been, running these tools forever. And so pretty familiar with how they should work in Sierra.
Mm-hmm.
And having that made the whole NinjaTrader process a lot easier, and it'll make the MotiveWave process easy as well. So from all that stuff, it hasn't been too painful, and we already have good chunk. Like I think we have like 25 folks that are basically beta testing Ninja. They've been doing it for about 4 weeks, and we found some kinks, and we pushed out new code, and so we're going through those final pieces before we're going to claim that it's officially ready for prime time.
Yep.
And then right after that, we will launch on MotiveWave, which we don't have a hard date on that yet, but most of the stuff is already coded on MotiveWave. We just have to get back in there and do all the performance, make sure the performance is good and all that.
How many signatures do I need to gather to get Thinkorswim? I just have no interest in ThinkScript.
I don't know that the code can be protected well enough.
Oh,
right.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
There's quite a few loopholes, and I know people that have gotten stolen code from other people, and that's just not a risk that we want to take.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. Get with the program, Thinkorswim.
Got to protect that proprietary. Yeah. Well, plus you cut out all your Canadian fans too. Which, for some reason, there seems to be a lot of them. A lot of futures traders in Canada.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if that's just George's influence over at
Yeah.
Trade Pro Academy or what. Single-handedly raised a generation.
That's right.
He could be.
Should we move on to some listener questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you guys have?
All right. And these aren't really addressed to anyone in particular, so I think anyone could chime in when they want. I think we should let Leo maybe talk a little bit.
I'm tired of Fleri talking to you guys. It's okay.
It's a reoccurring problem I have.
I'm just afraid Leo's sitting over there getting hungry and eyeing his wife's food while just sitting there. Let's see. Let me start with, if you can define your edge, like what is it that gives you your edge in trading the NQs?
What is it that gives my edge? I would say execution, definitely the biggest part of my edge.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I've tweeted about this before, and I still think like people miss this part, is you can have everything, like you can get all your analysis right. You can get all your levels done. You have everything up and running. If you don't know how to work your platform,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're on, to the level of detail that, like, I don't know, you ever watch a DJ, spin, on their table or whatever, they know like every single knob, every single thing that needs to be tweaked throughout whatever they're mixing, like the back of their hand. And I think that gives you a huge advantage if you're in the middle of a trade or need to get in a trade and you're not fumbling around, and you can switch between, contract, 5 contracts, 10 contracts, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, that your system well enough to be able to execute as quick and as fast as you need to. Because realistically, most of us that are trading futures are scalping, the intraday rotations, right? Like,
Right.
we're not holding a full position for 100 points. So it's not like I just go, buy here, full size, and I just hold it all day long. That would be great in theory, but it's just not how it works. And so you have to be able to work your way around a position, and, all of the things that come along with that, psychology and everything else, like everything you're seeing on the tape and, the DOM, and like all of that stuff, you have to be able to execute, what you're thinking and in the trades that you want to take. And if you're fumbling around and you don't know your system well enough, then you're going to miss out, on points, ticks. It could be the difference. Like, I've said this before. If you're too late on your entry based on, where you see the trade, it could be the difference between your stop, being stopped out because you got a poor location, and, the take profit. It's like, it's that close, in my opinion, to where if you're not able to nail your trade when it comes up and you're fumbling around and you don't know how to scale out, like, you got to have all that worked out before you sit down and trade live. And so the biggest thing for me is, on that standpoint, is understanding your brackets, how to scale in, how to scale out, working all of those kinks out in sim first, and then, before you step into a live scenario. And that's whether you're on any platform, you have to have that dialed in. And I think that too many people don't, just based on my conversations, they don't have that down to a T. It's like they know it like the back of their hand.
When it comes to Sierra charts, I do not.
Right.
I've been in that situation where suddenly, like, lost a bracket, like half of my bracket, like, just where'd it go? I don't know. But now I have no idea how to put another, like, half of the bracket back in. So I just end up having to flatten a trade.
Yeah, exactly.
I know how to flatten. I've gotten really good at that. One of the things that I think what you're saying, that I wonder if that would help too, because one of the issues that I see a lot of newer traders having too is analysis paralysis. And that's something that I struggle with a lot too, where you're just kind of hem-hawing around, like waiting for more and more and more confirmation before you finally just act. Like, one of the things that we've been talking with some of the different guests that we've had is how to be able to switch roles, basically. Like, you have your planner and your research, role, and then you have your executioner role, the person who's just supposed to act and not think about it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, in the moment, you have to be pretty dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, just like you said, you can't be planning and researching the middle of the trading session. Like, all of that stuff should be reserved for after the market closes or before the market opens. If you don't know what you're doing in the moment, you're going to see, like you said, you're going to get, wait for that confirmation. And then by the time you got all your 5 stars that have aligned, no jokes on the Elliott wave and the moon phases, guys, but if you wait for all of that stuff to align, then it's probably too late, right? And so you have to be, 1, have done your homework, 2, be ready to act, and then 3, turn off your intelligent side of your brain and just execute, right? Macro Tactical, friend of ours on Twitter, was kind of famous for the phrase, see it, hit it. And I think it's really that simple. Like, you see the trade opportunity, you hit it, and then your outcome should be determined by your brackets, like your stop and your take profits, whatever your scheme is, or new information that tells you your trade's no good anymore.
Right. Interesting. I like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That the concept of see it, hit it too, and Leo nailed it too. And Macro's been huge in helping with that psychology piece of trading. And I would have said 100% the same thing. Of you come into the market with an idea, right? And you have your trade thesis as your areas you want to do business. And when it gets there, if you're not ready from a platform perspective, if you're not ready from just like a trust in yourself perspective, you're already sort of behind. And, I think like to break down, see it, hit it a little bit more, in my conversations with Macro too, he shared he's like, I would hear you on voice, saying, I'm seeing this, like basically I'm talking through as we're coming into an area. And he's already in the trade I'm talking about, and I missed the trade I'm talking about. And, that was a big aha moment. And, we had some side conversations, and he was really helpful and just really helping me build confidence.
Wow.
And, something that he said there really resonated of like, you've got a process, right? And if you don't, you should get one and implement it. Like I look at the same, 8 to 10 things every single day, and I develop the same zones. And if those zones are working or not working, I filter them in or out based upon results. So you have a process, you need to trust that process. But then the next step is trusting yourself in that process. And when you enter an area where you think you're supposed to execute, are you able to execute? And then when you do execute correctly, that confidence that can build for your trading, just like mindset, is so huge. It's bigger than any sort of edge you could develop, really, of like, when it gets here, I buy or whatever. If you have a process and you learn to focus that process in and repeat it day in and day out, and then you learn to trust yourself in that process, the execution piece becomes so much easier to do because you've now trusted your process, you trust yourself, and now you can see it and hit it. And I think like learning to actually go through that, like that painful process sometimes, is what a lot of us don't do, right? Like we'll have an idea and then we'll kind of like, pussyfoot around it, right? Like we just don't quite execute that trade the way that we really intended to when we came into that area. But when you really start to just go, you know what, I'm going to put my money at risk here in this idea, and I'm going to see if it works the way that I thought it would work. And when it starts to work, that confidence that you can build from that is so valuable. And it just builds and it builds, and it gives you a filter and a process to start saying, okay, this is paying rent, this isn't paying rent. And when you do see those situations come up, whether it's price action, whether it's tools, whatever it is, then you start to get to that point where your platform so well, you can just click, and make your adjustments. And your trade idea so well that when you start to see some of the things like, oh, there it is, and boom, you're already clicking the buttons. And when you start to see success in that, man, there's something that clicks from a confidence perspective that really gives you edge that is far past just pattern recognition or some of the things that you can just get from learning or studying.
That's all. I hope Dan's taking notes because I'm gonna have to revisit that.
I'm trying to take notes, but sometimes I get distracted by listening.
Shit, Dan. You have one job to do.
One job. Fuck.
All right, here's another good question. How many different strategies do you guys have that you can draw on in different market conditions or situations?
From a strategies perspective, at least for me, I'm looking at the same sequence of we'll just call it like studies or same sequence of work, and the patterns and the pattern recognition that those are telling me to either A, create a level, or sort of B, create a bias. I kind of hate to use the word bias, but like some of the stuff gives you sort of a directional bias. And really, it's just a filter of that process. So like, let's say I'm looking at 8 different things that might give me a pattern that I want to trade or a setup that I want to trade. If maybe in this current environment, the bullish setups are working much better than potentially like a bearish setup, I'm going to focus more on those and lean into those more heavily. But at least currently, there's very few things. Like I've got 1 or 2 things on the stove that I'm looking at and seeing if potentially it will get folded into my daily process. But pretty much at the market close, it's go do the homework, and the homework is 90-ish% automated at this juncture, and the other things that are just going back and kind of studying trades or looking at balance areas and some of the things that you just have to kind of manually do. It's just the same every single day, and for me that's a huge piece of like, let's just keep it the same, do the same homework, so that way you can kind of filter the information with a clear lens, right? So if I'm doing it the same way every single day and all of a sudden one piece of this isn't working anymore, it's pretty easy to isolate the one piece that's not working. Or if one piece is working really well, it's much easier to kind of focus on those things.
Right. Leo?
Well, I had a tweet last Saturday, and it went something like this. If you want consistent results, you must stick to a consistent process, and there's no way around this. Changing your process every week or 2 is detrimental to your success. And what I meant by that was basically what Fleri just kind of outlined, is that I see so many people come into the market, thinking that they found the golden goose or the golden thing. And, they're super confident. They take the trade setups. And then what happens is, whatever they're trading, they go through a losing streak, right? And then in addition to that losing streak gets compounded because they're like, oh, well, I've done all my homework on this setup. Like it's going to work. And so they double down on those trades, and then they lose even more because for whatever reason, they're just going through the normal variance of whatever that trade setup is. And so they get kind of washed out on a particular strategy, and so then they go to the next strategy. It's kind of like, oh, well, that didn't work, so I'm going to go to the next thing.
Right. And
so I see a ton of traders that are always trying to go to that next thing, right? And they don't ever give the initial idea an opportunity to actually work. And I think that is super detrimental because you're taking something that could work or has worked and applying that, and then because you went through some variance on that strategy, you basically threw it away and then said, oh, I'm going to try something totally new. Now, not to say that you shouldn't be refining what you're looking at or putting additional filters. That's something that I do every weekend, nights. Like that's what Fleri and I spend. We're up till 2 and 3 in the morning, trying to work on like, how can we refine what we have, right? How can we refine through what we're looking at? So I think that statement is a whole different concept of, just constantly changing what you're doing and what your trading strategy is during the day. And that goes all the way from, the setups that you're taking to your brackets, to your trade size, to, the markets you're trading, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, when I read this question, I don't think of it as like completely different, like just completely changing your normal setup based on market conditions for that day, but having just more tools in the toolkit. I guess you can kind of say like, okay, well, today looks like breakouts are working better than anything else, kind of like what Fleri was saying. I have something else that I can lean on more and then kind of discard some of the other ones for today at least.
Right. Yeah. So I went off on a tangent I wasn't supposed to be on.
But no, that was great stuff, I think.
I totally agree with Leo here too, especially for people who are trying to find their footing in a process or in a strategy. And I'm going to give a shout out to a great like up and coming trader who works super hard at exactly what we're talking about here. And so on Twitter, he's at hardball_trader, but he focuses on CL predominantly, CL and NQ, but he takes everything into account.
Mm-hmm.
His work-life balance is in the fact that like he still works a full-time job and he has aspirations to be a full-time trader. So he has times of the day that his regular job will allow him to focus on the markets at the level that he feels that they need to be focused on, which, you know, is obviously, we know, a bunch of your attention level.
Right.
He also factors in like family time and how much time he wants to spend on the screens. And then he goes and he takes like just one or two very simple setups. And I mean, this guy is the master of the CL opening range trade. And because that time frame for when he needs to kind of start his day allows him some peace, you know, from a family perspective, peace from time, from work, and to be able to focus on that trade. And he understands the nuances of the opening range on the CL open based upon whether we're opening in value, out of value, in range, out of range, all of the factors that he looks at. And you know, I think the point is that, yes, you can have a bunch of different strategies and a bunch of different setups or processes that work. But as you're trying to build a foundation to really like get that confidence to execute and see it hit it on, focusing on less, like for sure, less is more. And being the master of one or two things and understanding the nuances of the product that you're trading in those one or two setups is infinitely more powerful than trying to sort of like jump from strategy to strategy and, oh, this didn't work. And really just understanding what is the expectancy and working some different brackets and just learning the price action around some of those things is very powerful. So I agree with kind of, I think that direction of less is more and focusing on a few things and then just building that playbook, I think is the key. Like if you're trying to spread across like 10 different strategies that you're learning from 10 different people, they might all be very successful strategies, but there's no way that you're going to be successful trying to spread yourself and your sort of like brain power and resources around those 10 strategies. Focus on one or two and be the master of those one or two. And if they don't fit your personal life, and even more so like of your personal life and the time that you have, if you work a full-time job or not, more like your personal like personality. Like, are you more risk on? Are you more risk off? Like, what kind of trades put you in an uncomfortable situation? Does the chop around the opening range just not sit well with you and your decision-making process? Or is that something that you can process quickly? Like, can you think on your feet fast? Can you click the buttons fast kind of thing? So yeah, I think less is more is just a huge thing. And again, like being the master of just like one or two setups is just such a powerful tool when you're just kind of trying to build that playbook.
Right. I like that mindset too, personally. Learn how to do something really well before trying to add to it. And if nothing else, you'll learn some patience too, which I think most of us could probably do with more of. Because if you're only practicing one, setup, you have to wait for those setups to come, and learning discipline and not trying to take stuff just because it looks fun. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
It's fun though, isn't it?
It is.
Like I'm flat and this looks like a short trade, right?
Yeah.
And that's all the further you put the thought process in it. I'm flat and the long didn't work, so let's short it.
I just hit it. I don't know what happened. Yeah. So how many days do you guys spend on your screens actively trading then? Is it just a few hours, or do you do like full day? Because it seems like, you do your trading in the morning and then you jump on the stream and then you stream for 3 or 4 hours.
I'd love to be done by 9:30 or 10:30 every single day. I mean, that's the goal. I certainly try to only be managing a trade after, say, that morning push or the Euro close, which is kind of weird now with daylight savings or whatever. But I try not to enter a new trade, especially like a full position type trade in the afternoon. And then I'll come back and sort of like that close or say after 1 o'clock Central for me. But yeah, I mean, if I can hit a point target or just like hit a good sequence that I think is sort of expressed the range that I was looking at for the day, and that happens by 9:30 or 10:30, I'll typically switch over and focus on our room with OrderFlow Labs or a stream or just kind of watch the markets and sort of see what I see. But yeah, majority of my if I look at my stats, I suck in the afternoon, so I just try to avoid it. I mean, that's the numbers don't lie; they're right there in my face. So as much as I can avoid that, the better. And it's certainly like initiating new trades. So yeah,
man, we're gonna run out of time. I got so many of these things.
Yeah, right.
Let's go speed session.
Yeah, we have to go quick mode here now. Is there any advantages to using the different types of charts like time, tick, or range? Or is that just more of a preference thing for traders?
I think whatever helps you visualize the market the best. I've met people that like time-based charts. I prefer tick-based charts. I think you can see a little more detail in the market structure. And then I know that, people like Renko charts or Heikin-Ashi. I think you just got to figure out what you like to see the most.
None of the charts work best with the studies, work better with the studies than others, or is it just the same data either way?
Well, so some of the studies are referencing different timeframes. And for Sierra chart, you have to have D&D charts that you overlay that to your actual execution chart. But for NinjaTrader, you can put it on any chart because the time frame that we're using is built into the code. So
okay,
but yeah, as far as our studies, nah.
Do you have any tips or tricks for trading outside of regular trading hours, like pre-market or the overnight session, the Globex?
Don't
skip it.
It's not worth your time.
Unless your stats are as good as RTH, just skip it.
Do you think the NQ is harder to trade than the ES?
Yes and no.
When I first started, yes. Now, no. But it's a matter of learning the nuances of the market that you're focused on. I would say the main answer to that is it's really hard, at least for me personally, to know the nuances of multiple markets and monitor them at the same time. I can look at ES and see that ES is in the opening range or attempting to break a low a day, which is kind of what happened today, and look at the correlation of where NQ is in that and where that might put NQ if it kind of pulls down at a sort of confluent ratio. But yeah, it's super, super hard to be in tune to multiple markets. So I say NQ, and that's just because that's where my focus is 100%.
Is it just because it has more volatility and you like that? You like the trade to basically be done quicker?
Yeah, I mean, one part volatility, one part summer was just a good opportunity to just kind of get into the nuance of NQ. And it just seemed to be a market that was flowing more towards my style and how I was kind of seeing the market in some of the studies and tools that I was using. So NQ ES are probably right there. Even if I switched over to ES, I feel like I would be just as in tune. It's just I think the pay me right now-ness of NQ it just fits my strategy and my personality a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, the liquidity has been tough in NQ lately. I mean, the spreads and stuff, it's tough. So ES has been looking really nice lately, and how thick it's trading. So we'll see. You never know.
All right, let's we got a couple more here. One of these, this came from our friend Paul. He wants to know if you guys view your tools as a supplement to an already successful trading plan, or is it a way to develop a successful trading plan? Would you recommend a trader having a solid foundation before adding the studies, or is this more of a package as a way to get new traders to get in and learn?
I would say it's somewhere in between. And yeah, that's probably a frustrating answer, but I tell people that are brand new to trading, don't even sign up because there's no point. You have to understand the basic market dynamics, like what is a volume profile, what is a DOM, what's the time in sales, like some of the basic understanding of how to trade in a futures market with order flow specifically. I mean, if you're just going to trade price action, then obviously you don't need any of those things. But if you're going to utilize order flow in any manner, then you need to understand, what those basic mechanisms are. And then I think once you have that understanding, then, some of the concepts and stuff that our tools are aiming to show definitely help reduce that learning curve to get you from kind of that, a little bit about what you're doing to, you're not necessarily an expert, but you get a much better understanding of how to interpret some of the order flow dynamics.
I had a follow-up for myself. What is order flow? You could just explain that real quick. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I couldn't resist. What is a DOM?
What's a volume profile while you're at it?
But yeah, if you already have a successful strategy, I think we're definitely a good complement to that because there's going to be confluence with, what you're already trading. And so, sometimes if you are looking to gain that extra piece of confluence or confidence in taking those trades, then, that's definitely going to be beneficial to what you're doing.
One of the ways we described your guys' toolkit is it's almost like having you guys come over and just draw on my charts for me.
Some of that, so that's definitely true in some aspects.
Well, I mean, because I think from the previous conversation we had is that it was more just a way to automate a lot of the work that you guys were already doing.
Right.
So the tools aren't necessarily replacing any of that knowledge, but it's just it's taking away time spent doing those drawings and finding those zones and areas of interest and reducing the amount of brain power you need to identify those setups, right?
100%.
Well, then I guess this last one should follow up kind of nicely with that then. So what would you recommend for new traders as far as books to go to try to get some of this information? Like somebody who wants to be a full-time trader, like where would you recommend they start?
I think starting with auction theory and just kind of understanding how the auction moves back and forth, moving from balance to imbalance was huge for me as far as just kind of like learning the ebbs and flows of markets and understanding value, fair value, things like that. So Markets in Profile from Dalton would be a good one. Stoudemire would be another one kind of in that same area. Yeah, that would probably be my top pick and just a good place to start, Market Profile.
Leo, I think you started with the book, right?
Me? Yeah, I wrote it.
Yeah, didn't you tell somebody you wanted to learn and then he gave you a book to read? Or is that somebody else I'm thinking of?
That might have been somebody else.
No, that was Markets in Profile was the first book I read, so I felt like I should
okay.
I should probably suggest it. But yeah, that was my journey. Read a book, come back. I read it in about a day, and still go back and study that all the time. It's just understanding value is huge, and so the auction theory. It's tough to you can have price action and you can have all the things, but like truly understanding like the way that the market auctions back and forth and why you might see a reversal or breakouts from areas and things like that, how you move from balance to imbalance. It lends itself to really any strategy that you're going to try to deploy later, whether it's just purely market profile and setups based around that and stuff like that, like poor highs, poor lows. But just understanding that as like a core, I think is a good building block, at least for new traders.
Leo?
I totally spaced out. I don't even know what the hell you guys are talking about.
Books you'd recommend to new traders, somebody who wants to learn how to trade.
The classic is Reminiscences of a Stock Operator. I think that's a great book. It's 400 years old, but it still has good concepts for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it written in Old English? Or?
It's not 400 years old. I mean, it's like...
okay.
Hear he. Never short a trendy.
I tried to read Canterbury Tales once. If it's going to be like that, then that's not going to happen.
No, it's written really well. It's a great book.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the name again?
Reminiscences of a Stock Operator.
I just like hearing you say reminiscences.
Yeah.
Can we get that one more time?
Reminiscences?
Reminiscences.
Did I hear a niner in there somewhere?
8-ball corner pocket.
Dan, do you have anything else you wanna touch on here?
No, this has been a great time. I'm so glad we had you guys back on. You're always a dearth of knowledge.
I wouldn't mind making this a regular thing. Get these guys back on. We can keep bringing in questions from some of the traders that we know maybe having some struggles.
Yeah.
Nothing like having the ear of an expert to kind of share some of that wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having us on again.
We know Fleri likes to talk.
Yeah, I mean, I could keep talking and talking. Are you sure we have to stop right now?
We don't have to, but I figure you guys probably have stuff to do.
The recording's cut and I'm just talking to myself.
Yeah, it actually stopped an hour ago.
I noticed on the edits it just cuts like sometimes in the middle of my sentence. Who do we talk to about that? Is that Kyle or Dan?
Oh, that would be me. Yeah.
Yep. Dan would be the one. I've tried editing before. It takes 5 times as long.
That's like Leo and I's relationship. Leo's the editor and the producer for that matter. I just look at his videos and say that these look good.
Speaking of which, man, I gotta say I was really surprised to see that part of the OrderFlow suite. It's not just the tools that you guys have, but it's all the educational stuff that you guys have put along with it.
Yeah.
I guess I was really impressed with that. I was not aware of that when I first heard of you. I'd like to make sure people are aware. If you want to learn how to use these tools, they've got a ton of information on their Discord, on their YouTube channel. There's just great information there.
I appreciate that. It's a bunch of hard work, especially editing, like you said. Yeah. I can imagine like editing audio is kind of a pain because you have to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
But on the video side, at least you can skip parts because you know what happened. But yeah, it takes a ton of work just to even put like, I did a 1 hour walkthrough of how to set up a Sierra chart, from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And that 1 hour, I think it's 45 minutes. That 45-minute video probably took me, I don't know, 6 hours or 7 hours to fully complete from start to finish.
Oh, wow.
But
that sounds quick too.
Now you can, pick up Sierra chart and in 1 hour kind of follow along and at least get something basic off the ground.
Yeah.
But, of course, Sierra chart, they changed their chart settings windows with their latest releases. And so none of those videos are good anymore.
Oh, man. Oh, shit.
Oh, man, those bastards. Sierra charts being a pain. What's the deal with their support group? They're fucking salty.
You've been trolled.
Yeah, there's like definitely two sides to the coin though, because if you read their support forums long enough, you'll see their frustration sometimes because people will post some insane questions like, my VWAP is off. Can you tell me what's going on? Without any other context. No settings. They just literally just say, my VWAP is wrong.
It's just wrong.
They don't give you a comparison. They just, I mean, they have the most active support forum that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I haven't dug around like NinjaTrader super in depth, but from an active standpoint, like they're, as much as they push back to their customers, push back is a gentle word. They are
salty.
They are pretty active and attempting to help people. And I think you can see that to a certain degree.
I've noticed that they're really quick,
right,
in their responses,
yeah.
Even if that response is to tell you that you're an idiot and that's not possible. That's just the way it is.
My favorite one is like, no, that's stupid and we'll never do that. Why would you ever do that?
Nope. Sorry.
All right. You guys got anything else you want to promote here? You want to tell everybody where to find you? You got any special promotions going on or anything? Maybe.
Well, so when we launch on NinjaTrader, it's going to be a big what to do because we've spent so much time working on it, and so we'll have some. I think Fleri is going to be streaming all day on YouTube. That's like super easy, right? Because you know how much Fleri likes to talk.
Hours,
and you don't have to
hours of talking.
I'll pop in there every once in a while just to troll him.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have pretty cool promotions going for new trade, like for people that are coming on new from Ninja, even people that are existing. So we'll have something cool for people that are already part of the OFL crew. And might be like somebody might win 6 months of free OFL. I don't know.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
We'll see.
That's a good prize.
But yeah, so we'll definitely have some promotions going on for that launch. And I think the store, like the site, is actually just going to shut down for a while because the promos are going to be so good that day. We don't want anyone signing up a week like a week beforehand and being like, oh man, I got totally shafted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the store is going to be shut down for a bit. Just as far as like being able to sign up.
All right. And that's OrderFlowLabs.com?
Yes.
And then the YouTube channel?
I think it's youtube.com /C/ I don't know, Fleri, what is it? OrderFlow Labs.
Well,
Yes.
I can just put a link.
Right.
Just what's the channel name?
OrderFlow Labs.
OrderFlow Labs on YouTube.
Oh, sorry guys. It's just / OrderFlow Labs. I'm like, why aren't they listening to me? They're talking. It's just / OrderFlow Labs. All one word.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll have links for all that in the episode description. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming back. We'll have to schedule another one of these. And also, if you guys aren't doing anything one of these Saturdays here, we've been thinking about starting the shitty movie night with some of our other listeners. We did our first one with Velocil Pastor. We just all watched a stream a movie together.
What's a shitty movie night?
I think Zombievers is the next one we're going to be doing.
Yeah,
man. You guys come to poker night and donate to Leo. We'll come to shitty movie night.
All right.
What's the buy-in?
Whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
It's just whatever I'm willing to lose.
Don't risk more than you're willing to lose.
I don't usually play for more than $100 these days.
We can accommodate that.
Yeah, that'll work.
Probably 20 for somebody who sounds really quick to jump on that.
Rebuy table one.
Because I know people, like, when you sit down and play poker and you're like, oh, I got 100 to lose, you really have about 300, right? Like, you're willing to, like, you got 100, you're willing to throw 3 bullets at it.
It's literally describing my Friday last Friday.
Well, are you guys playing just regular no limit hold'em, or are you guys playing a tournament?
We've done both. Like, last Friday, we did a cash game. So it was just like a 10 cent, 25 cent blinds. I know that sounds super massive, but when you're playing,
it gets massive
when you're playing online, and 3 hours later, it starts to get pretty spicy.
Yeah,
just because you go through so many hands when you're playing on a line game.
Especially when you got an asshole who's raising $5 every flop.
Oh, so you played with Leo before?
I've been there,
Yeah. But no, it's fun. Like, we all get on voice, shoot the shit, listen to music, and play cards. It's a good time, especially like on a Friday to just cool off from the week or whatever. It's good.
I'll have to see if I can stay sober long enough.
Also part of Leo's plan.
Yep. Okay, Dan, you want to wrap us up?
This has been fantastic. Thank you guys again. Can't wait to have you back on. But sadly, time is finite and we've got to close up shop. So thanks for sticking around to the end, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be coming back at you soon with a regularly scheduled episode. But until then, happy trades.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Two Bulls in a China Shop is an entertainment program, and all thoughts and opinions expressed in the show belong to the hosts and not of any company. They are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security or investment product. It is only intended to provide entertainment about stocks in the financial industry of trading. If you make trades based on what you hear in this show, you assume all risks for those trades.
The gifts are all yours at JCPenney's Happy Birthday Sale. Celebrate with 30% off select Levi's for the fam. Plus, save up to 50% during our biggest home sale of the season. Oh, and this Saturday only, the first 120 customers in-store get a coupon for $10 off a $10 purchase. Shopping is back. JCPenney. Levi's offer ends 4/17. Additional offers and coupons do not apply. Home offer ends 4/9. Coupon giveaway in-store only. Exclusions apply. Valid 4/9. Must be 18 or older. See store or jcp.com for details.